A mysterious book has resisted every attempt at translation for 500 years. This is the Voynich Manuscript, a handwritten codex brimming with unidentifiable plants and celestial charts, written in a script that belongs to no known language. By the end of this exploration, you will understand the revolutionary theories that are finally cracking its ancient code. We will investigate why its biological drawings baffle modern science and ask if its text is a complex cipher or a lost tongue. What does it truly take to solve a puzzle that has outsmarted generations? In 1912, a Polish book dealer named Wilfred Voynich was searching through a chest of ancient manuscripts in a quiet Italian villa. He pulled out a book unlike any he had ever seen. Its pages were made of vellum, a fine parchment, and they were filled from edge to edge with elegant, looping characters that formed no language he could recognize. The illustrations were just as bewildering. He saw plants with impossible leaves and roots, women bathing in interconnected pools of green liquid, and intricate charts of celestial bodies that defied known astronomy. Voynich knew he had found something extraordinary, a genuine puzzle from a lost age. He purchased the manuscript, and with that single act, he pulled a 500-year-old mystery into the modern world. The initial reaction from scholars was a mixture of fascination and deep skepticism. Some believed it was a priceless scientific work, perhaps a secret herbal or an alchemical text. Others were convinced it was an elaborate and meaningless forgery, a Renaissance hoax designed to fool a wealthy patron. Bibliographers, the experts who study ancient books, faced immediate challenges. They could carbon date the vellum to the early 15th century, but the ink and the author remained a complete enigma. The script was simply too unique, with no clear connection to any known alphabet or cipher system of the time. This moment of discovery did more than just add a curious item to a collector's shelf. It presented the world with a riddle that has consumed codebreakers, linguists, and historians for over a century. What was the purpose of this beautiful, baffling book? Was it a secret code waiting to be cracked, or was it something else entirely, a language constructed for a world we have forgotten? In a quiet laboratory, a tiny sample of parchment holds the key to a 5-century-old mystery. Radiocarbon dating, a process that measures the decay of carbon-14 atoms, was finally applied to the Voynich manuscript. The results were definitive. The vellum pages were created between the years 1404 and 1438. This scientific anchor places the book firmly in the early 15th century, a time of immense change in Europe. This was the era of the Renaissance, a cultural reawakening where art, science, and exploration were beginning to flourish. Yet, the manuscript's bizarre content seems to stand apart from the known intellectual currents of that age. Researchers involved in this breakthrough described the feeling as a mix of triumph and renewed bewilderment. We had a solid date, a real historical context, but the puzzle only deepened. The materials themselves tell a story. The vellum is high quality, suggesting a wealthy patron commissioned the work. The inks, analyzed separately, are consistent with recipes from that period, effectively dismissing long-held theories that it was a later forgery. So we have a real, expensive book made in early 15th century Europe. But who would invest such resources into a volume of unreadable text and unrecognizable biology? This crucial dating does more than just verify the manuscript's age. It narrows the window of history we must search, focusing our investigation on the minds and motivations of a world poised between medieval tradition and the dawn of modern science. Open the manuscript and you are immediately lost in a forest of the impossible. The largest section of the book is devoted to illustrations of plants, page after page of delicate paintings in green, brown, and blue. But these are not the herbs and flowers of our world. A botanist might recognize a familiar leaf shape, only to find the root system is something entirely alien, or a flower bears a fruit that defies all classification. These are not simple artistic errors. They are consistent, detailed, and utterly baffling. Scholars have compared every known species from Europe and the New World, yet these plants remain phantoms, existing only within the vellum pages of this book. This forces a difficult question. Are we looking at a purely fictional botany, a symbolic language where each plant represents an idea? Or could it be a record of lost knowledge, depicting flora that has since gone extinct or was known only to a secretive few? Turn the page and the mystery shifts from the earth to the heavens. You encounter circular diagrams filled with stars, some arranged in familiar patterns like Taurus the bull, but others are surrounded by tiny, naked figures inhabiting the constellations themselves. These are not the classical gods of Greek mythology. The figures are often female, positioned in strange, intricate arrangements within what looks like a complex system of tubes and pools. This so-called biological section is one of the most debated. Some researchers see it as an allegory for human anatomy, perhaps a medieval understanding of the circulatory or lymphatic systems. Others interpret it as a spiritual map showing souls bathing in celestial waters. The most famous illustration is the rosette's fold-out, a sprawling, multi-page diagram of what appears to be 9 interconnected islands or structures linked by pipes and towers. It looks like a schematic for a fantastical machine or a map of a hidden world, a visual concept that has no clear parallel in any known text from the period. Art historians note that the style of these drawings, from the flowing lines to the use of color, is consistent with European manuscript traditions of the early 15th century. The zodiac series, for instance, mirrors a common theme in medieval books, but with peculiar deviations that make the constellations unfamiliar. This European influence is a crucial clue. It tells us the artist was likely trained in the conventions of their time, but was applying that training to depict something entirely novel. The images are not mere decoration. They are deeply woven into the text, with the strange words often wrapping around the illustrations, suggesting that the pictures and the script are two parts of a single, unified message. To understand the words, we must first decipher the visual language. What worldview, what unique blend of science, magic, and philosophy could have produced such a coherent yet incomprehensible vision of the natural world? The answer lies not just in the text, but in the mind of the person who saw this universe and felt compelled to record it. The script itself is a labyrinth of ink and intention. You are faced with approximately 25 to 30 unique characters, an alphabet that belongs to no civilization on Earth. Some shapes hint at familiar Latin letters, while others are entirely alien, a series of looping gallows and delicate curls that flow across the page without a single comma or period in sight. At first glance, the text looks like any other medieval manuscript, but a closer look reveals its profound strangeness. The words are short, often just 2 or 3 characters, and they follow patterns that are both repetitive and deeply cryptic. This is the language scholars call Voynichese. Early codebreakers, including the brilliant William Friedman, who led the American WW2 cryptography effort, were initially confident. They applied every tool in their arsenal, from frequency analysis that breaks simple ciphers to complex statistical models. Friedman and his team discovered something both fascinating and frustrating. The script possessed a statistical structure that mimicked a real language. The word lengths were distributed naturally, and the way characters followed one another, a property known as entropy, was not random. It had the rhythm and flow of human communication, but it was a rhythm that matched no known tongue on the planet. This finding tore the debate wide open. If it was a complex cipher, what code could so perfectly disguise a message while preserving the fundamental statistics of language? This led to another compelling theory, that the Voynich Manuscript is written in a constructed language. Imagine an artificial tongue invented from whole cloth, perhaps for philosophical or secret scientific purposes. Yet even this idea struggles to explain the text's peculiarities, such as words that seem to repeat with slight, predictable variations. A more radical suggestion is that we are witnessing glossolalia, or automatic writing, a stream of subconscious symbols given form. The physical act of writing adds another layer. Experts have identified at least two distinct handwriting styles, now called Courier A and Courier B, suggesting multiple scribes were involved in its creation. This was not the work of a single afternoon. It was a deliberate, collaborative project, so we are left with a profound contradiction. The script behaves like a language, but it cannot be read. It was written by multiple hands, yet its message remains unified in its obscurity. Every statistical property we measure brings us a step closer to understanding, and yet the words themselves retreat further into silence. What kind of mind or group of minds would go to such lengths to create a book that is at once so structured and so secret? The answer may lie not in the letters themselves, but in the cultural crucible that forged them. Faced with such a profound enigma, the world of scholarship quickly fractured into warring camps. The first and simplest explanation was that the Voynich Manuscript was an elaborate hoax. Perhaps it was the work of a clever forger like Edward Kelly, a known occultist and medium from the 16th century, who might have crafted the book to swindle a wealthy patron hungry for secret knowledge. This theory gained traction because it offered a clean solution. The strange plants and unreadable text were not a code to be broken, but a meaningless confection designed to look mysterious and valuable. Skeptics pointed to the repetitive nature of the text, suggesting it could be the product of a simple cipher generating plausible-looking nonsense. Even Wilfrid Voynich himself was not above suspicion. As the man who discovered and profited from the book, some wondered if he had commissioned its creation to enhance his own reputation as a dealer of rare and mysterious texts. Yet this tempting theory began to crumble under scrutiny. The carbon dating placed the vellum firmly in the 15th century, long before Kelly or Voynich were born. The cost and effort involved in preparing hundreds of vellum pages was immense, a significant investment for a mere prank. Furthermore, the statistical structure of the text, its complex internal patterns, argued against a random or hastily fabricated work. A forger would have had to possess a deep, almost intuitive understanding of linguistic probability to create something that so perfectly mimicked a natural language, a feat nearly impossible for the time. This led a second camp to champion the cipher theory. For them, the manuscript was a locked box containing genuine knowledge, its contents protected by a sophisticated code. Renaissance thinkers were fascinated by cryptography and methods like substitution ciphers, where each letter is replaced by another symbol, were well known. Codebreakers from that era to the modern day applied these techniques, searching for a key that would transform the alien script into Latin or Arabic. They tried everything. Some attempted to decode it as a form of abbreviated Latin, a scholarly shorthand. Others looked for complex polyalphabetic ciphers, where the same symbol could represent different letters depending on its position. World War II's top cryptographers, fresh from cracking enemy codes, turned their formidable skills to the manuscript, only to be defeated. Time and again, a proposed decryption would reveal a few plausible-looking words, only to collapse into gibberish on the next page. The fundamental problem was the lack of a crib, a known piece of the original text to use as a key. Without a Rosetta Stone, every attempt was a shot in the dark. The cipher was either too advanced for modern methods, or it was something entirely different from what anyone had assumed. A third, more romantic possibility emerged. What if Voynichese was not a code at all, but a genuine lost language? Linguists who studied the text noted its high degree of internal consistency. The words obeyed grammatical rules, with prefixes and suffixes appearing in logical places. This was not the random scrawl of a madman or a forger, but the structured output of a coherent linguistic system. Proponents of this theory suggested it could represent a rare dialect that died out, or even a language isolate, a tongue with no relation to any other known family, developed in secret by a small, perhaps heretical, community. They imagined a group preserving ancient knowledge, recording it in their own unique script to avoid persecution. The illustrations then would not be fictional, but a literal depiction of their unique understanding of botany and cosmology. Yet this theory also faced a major hurdle. No language exists in a vacuum. If this was a real tongue, one would expect to find traces of its vocabulary, its grammatical structures, or even its alphabet in other documents from the same period and region. So far, not a single shred of corroborating evidence has been found. The manuscript remains a linguistic island, utterly alone in the historical record. These early theories, from cynical hoax to complex cipher to forgotten tongue, each illuminated a piece of the puzzle, yet none could account for the whole. They set the stage for a far more radical idea, one that would turn the entire mystery on its head. Deep within the strange script, a hidden rhythm begins to pulse. When you feed the Voynich Manuscript's text into a computer, a fascinating duality emerges. The words behave statistically, much like any natural language on Earth. They adhere to a principle known as Zipf's law. This linguistic rule states that in any human language, the most common word will appear roughly twice as often as the second most common word, 3 times as often as the third, and so on. The Voynich text follows this pattern almost perfectly. This is a powerful clue. It strongly suggests we are not looking at random gibberish or a simple, repetitive cipher. The text has the statistical soul of a real language. Yet, when you look closer, the vocabulary itself is oddly constrained. The same core words and short phrases appear again and again with only slight modifications, as if the entire book is built from a surprisingly small set of linguistic building blocks. It is like listening to a beautiful song in a language you do not understand, where the melody is familiar but the notes are all foreign. Data scientists who have trained machine learning algorithms on the text have found something even more intriguing. The words seem to follow internal syntactic rules. Certain characters or short sequences, which we might think of as prefixes or suffixes, appear consistently at the beginnings or ends of words. The arrangement of words within a line is not random either. There are patterns that hint at a grammar, a set of invisible rules governing how ideas are structured. This is the ghost in the machine, the shadow of a logical mind at work. But for every pattern, there is a baffling anomaly. Many illustrations are accompanied by short, repeated phrases that look very much like labels or captions. This makes perfect sense, as if the text is directly describing the image. Yet these same label-like phrases also appear in the dense paragraphs, far away from any pictures. Are they truly labels, or are they common words that simply recur throughout the text? Another peculiar feature involves what some researchers call null characters. These are specific symbols that seem to function more like punctuation or formatting marks than letters. They might indicate a paragraph break, or perhaps they serve a symbolic purpose, like an asterisk in a modern text. The very way the text is laid out on the page adds to the mystery. Words are grouped into short blocks that resemble verses or instructional steps, rather than long, flowing prose. Could this be a scientific manual, a book of poetry, or perhaps a collection of rituals? This structural analysis does not solve the mystery. Instead, it refines it. We are no longer asking if it is a language, but what kind of language behaves this way. It has the statistical backbone of human communication, yet its vocabulary is so repetitive and its grammar so deeply hidden. The computer tells us there is a system here, a mind at work, but it cannot tell us what that mind was trying to say. This evidence pushes us toward a more sophisticated and radical possibility. Perhaps the key is not a cipher key, but a cultural one. We must look beyond the letters and into the world that created them, to a time when the lines between science, magic, and art were beautifully and mysteriously blurred. A name emerged from the shadows of history, promising a key to the unreadable book. Roger Bacon, a 13th century Franciscan friar, was a man centuries ahead of his time. He wrote of flying machines and gunpowder, and he passionately believed that nature could only be understood through experimentation and the breaking of secret codes. It was Wilfred Voynich himself who latched onto this idea, promoting the theory that his mysterious manuscript was the lost work of this brilliant proto-scientific mind. The logic was seductive. Here was a book filled with what looked like advanced biological and astronomical diagrams, and there was Bacon, a scholar known for his esoteric and encrypted writings. The theory proposed that the strange script was not a language, but a sophisticated cipher, a form of shorthand that Bacon had invented to conceal his most radical discoveries from a suspicious church. This was the first great decryption attempt, and it captured the public imagination. The man who claimed to prove it was William Romain Newbold, a respected professor of philosophy. His method was as meticulous as it was controversial. Newbold worked backwards from the assumption that Bacon was the author. He believed the true message was not in the large, elegant characters, but in tiny, microscopic scratches within the ink strokes, visible only under a magnifying glass. He saw these as a form of ancient Greek shorthand. By interpreting these microscopic marks, Newbold announced a staggering translation. He claimed the manuscript described microscopes, the spiral structure of galaxies, and even the fertilization of a human ovum by sperm cells, knowledge that was impossibly advanced for the medieval period. His decodings painted a picture of a super scientist, a lone genius who had glimpsed the future, but the scientific community was not convinced. Other scholars tried to replicate Newbold's work and found a fatal flaw. The microscopic marks he based his entire translation on were not intentional at all. They were simply cracks in the aged ink, natural fractures that appeared over centuries. Newbold had essentially been reading the random patterns of decay, seeing a message in the static. He had fallen into the trap of pareidolia, the human tendency to find meaningful patterns in random data, like seeing a face in the clouds. His translations were a product of his own desperate imagination, a complex narrative built on a foundation of crumbling ink. The collapse of the Bacon cipher theory was a pivotal moment. It demonstrated that wishful thinking was not enough to crack this code. It showed that the Voynich manuscript would not yield to grand assumptions or speculative leaps, no matter how appealing they seemed. This failure forced researchers to become more rigorous, to rely on data and statistical analysis rather than romantic stories. The search for the author was back to square one, but the quest was now armed with a new and valuable piece of knowledge. The answer would not be found by forcing a famous name onto the pages. but by listening carefully to the quiet, internal logic of the book itself. The war had ended, but for a small team of codebreakers, the greatest puzzle of their lives was just beginning. William Friedman and his wife Elizabeth were legends. They had led the American effort to break the Japanese purple cipher, a feat that saved countless lives. With peace restored, they turned their formidable intellects to a different kind of enemy, the impenetrable text of the Voynich Manuscript. They assembled a team, treating the ancient book like a military code. Their primary weapon was frequency analysis. In any natural language, certain letters appear more often than others. In English, for example, the letter E is the most common. The Friedmans meticulously counted every character in the Voynich text, mapping its internal statistics. They discovered the script obeyed Zipf's law, which confirmed it was structured like a language. But when they dug deeper, the patterns broke down. They tried n-gram analysis, a technique that looks for common sequences of letters. In English, sequences like THE or ING are everywhere. In the Voynich text, certain character pairs and triplets did repeat, but not in the way they expected from a European language. The building blocks were there, but the architecture was alien. In a declassified report, one of the analysts expressed a shared frustration, writing that the text resisted their methods at every turn. It was as if the manuscript had been designed specifically to defy the tools of modern cryptography. They examined word boundaries, the spaces between what we perceive as words. They found that many Voynich words were just slight variations of a root, as if the entire vocabulary was built from a handful of core components. This was not how Latin or German worked. This repetitive, constrained nature pointed away from a natural tongue. The Friedmans' ultimate conclusion was a pivotal moment in the manuscript's history. They proposed that Voynichese was not a direct cipher of a known language, but what they called a synthetic language. Imagine an author inventing a new, simplified grammar and a limited set of words, then using that system to write their book. It would have the statistical profile of a real language, but its vocabulary would be artificial, created for a specific purpose. This theory explained why the text felt so coherent yet remained unreadable. There was no dictionary to consult because the author had made the dictionary up. The involvement of the Friedmans transformed the quest. It was no longer the domain of eccentric antiquarians. The best cryptanalytic minds of the 20th century had validated the mystery. Their failure was in itself a profound discovery. It proved that the solution would not be found with a simple substitution cipher or a known linguistic key. They had exhausted the conventional paths, and in doing so, they cleared the way for something far more unconventional. Their work became the bedrock for all future computerized analysis, a legacy that asks us to consider a radical possibility. What if the manuscript was never meant to be read by us at all? This linguistic puzzle forces us to ask a deceptively simple question. Are we looking at a lost human language or a brilliant artificial creation? The distinction is everything. If it is a natural language, then somewhere a community of people spoke and wrote these words, and the manuscript is a priceless window into a forgotten culture. If it is constructed, then it is a tool, a private code or symbolic system built for a specific, hidden purpose. Linguists who argue for a natural language point to its deep internal structure. The words are not random strings of characters. They follow consistent patterns that resemble phonological rules, the building blocks of speech. Certain sounds, or their written equivalents, tend to appear at the beginnings of words, while others cluster at the ends. This is precisely how real languages work, with prefixes and suffixes modifying root words. The text also displays a clear syllable structure, with consonant and vowel-like characters alternating in a rhythmic flow. It sounds for all the world like a language you could learn to speak. Yet, the case for a constructed system is equally compelling. The vocabulary is remarkably small and repetitive. While it obeys Zipf's law statistically, the actual number of unique root words is tiny compared to any known natural language. It is as if the entire book was written using only a few hundred core concepts, endlessly recombined. This is a hallmark of artificial systems, like modern computer programming languages or philosophical codes designed for precision, not poetry. Furthermore, despite its grammatical-looking structure, the text shows no clear semantic content. In a real language, even an unknown one, you expect to find clear labels for common things. A picture of a plant should have a consistent word beneath it, but in the Voynich, the same label-like word often appears under wildly different plants, and different words appear under identical-looking plants. This inconsistency is deeply strange. This is where researchers like Dr. Gordon Rugg entered the debate, proposing a radical and unsettling possibility. He demonstrated that the text could have been generated without any meaning at all, using a simple mechanical device from the period known as a Cardan grill. Imagine a table of word parts, prefixes, roots, and suffixes. By sliding a grill with cut-out holes over this table, a person could randomly select and combine these fragments to produce text that looks grammatically correct but is ultimately meaningless. Rugg's work showed that such a method could easily produce all the strange statistical properties that had baffled codebreakers for decades, including the famous Zipf's law distribution. His theory suggests the manuscript might be an elaborate and beautiful forgery, not of a book with content, but of the very idea of a book itself. Modern computing has subjected the text to even more rigorous tests. Cluster analysis, which maps how words group together, reveals that Voynichese has a unique fingerprint, unlike any European or Asian language. Entropy measures, which quantify the predictability of a sequence, show it sits in a strange middle ground, more ordered than random babble but less structured than most human tongues. For context, we can look at other enigmatic texts. The modern Codex Seraphinianus, created in the 1970s, is a visual parallel. It is a beautiful encyclopedia of an imaginary world, written in a script that is utterly fake, a stream of unconscious artistry designed to evoke the feeling of language without the burden of meaning. Could the Voynich be a Renaissance predecessor to this very concept? The debate between natural language and artificial system is not just academic. It forces us to reconsider the fundamental nature of language itself. Is language defined solely by its statistical properties, or does it require a community of minds to give it life and shared meaning? The Voynich Manuscript sits perfectly on this razor's edge, possessing the skeleton of a language but lacking, so far, its soul. This unresolved linguistic war sets the stage for the next act, where modern technology and ancient history would collide in a final, dramatic attempt to hear the manuscript speak. Perhaps the most cynical explanation is also the most human. Could this entire masterpiece of mystery be nothing more than an elaborate and beautiful fraud? The hoax theory has shadowed the Voynich manuscript from the very beginning, suggesting its unreadable text and impossible plants were designed not to encode knowledge, but to generate profit. A Renaissance con artist like the infamous Edward Kelly might have crafted such a volume to sell to a gullible nobleman hungry for ancient secrets. The motive was simple. In an age of alchemy and occult fascination, a book that looked profoundly mysterious could command an extraordinary price. The carbon dating, which confirmed the vellum's early 15th century origin, dealt a severe blow to one part of this theory. It definitively cleared Wilfrid Voynich himself of creating the book from scratch. He was a dealer, not the author, but it simultaneously opened the door for a different kind of forgery, one that took place centuries earlier. The investment in materials, the hundreds of fine vellum pages, suggests a significant upfront cost, but the potential return from a wealthy patron like Emperor Rudolph II, to whom the manuscript was once linked, could have made it a worthwhile gamble. The content itself provides fuel for this skeptical fire. Look closely at the botanical section. The plants are not just unknown, they are often biologically incoherent. Leaves from one species are grafted onto the roots of another, and flower structures defy the basic logic of plant reproduction. A forger would not need deep botanical knowledge, only a vivid imagination and a talent for combining familiar elements into novel or inspiring forms. The repetitive text is another red flag for skeptics. Could the flowing script be a kind of artistic performance, the careful copying of made-up glyphs to create the illusion of language without its substance? This is where the work of researchers like Gordon Rugg becomes so compelling. He demonstrated that using a simple tool like a Cardan grill, a table of syllables and a stencil, a single person could have generated the entire text. This method would naturally produce the statistical patterns we see, including Zipf's law, because it mimics the combinatorial process of real language, all without a single meaningful word being written. The neuroscientist Marcelo Montemurro, after his own extensive analysis, voiced a profound doubt. He questioned whether the complex patterns his research uncovered were truly evidence of a message, or merely the ghost of a structure, an empty shell that tricks us into seeing meaning where none exists. Why would a person with genuine knowledge go to such lengths to hide it in a system that appears to have no key? The artistic elements also suggest intentional obscurity. The zodiac illustrations, for instance, mirror common medieval themes but are populated with unfamiliar nymph-like figures, as if the forger was saying just enough to feel authentic while remaining safely ambiguous. The bathing women in the biological section could be pure fantasy, designed to appeal to a patron's interest in the mystical and the exotic. Yet, for all its persuasive power, the hoax theory struggles with the book's sheer consistency and care. The text is written in at least two distinct hands, indicating a sustained, collaborative effort. A forger working for a quick payoff would likely have worked alone and faster. The illustrations, while strange, are rendered with a technical skill that suggests a trained artist, not a hack. And would a simple fraud have possessed the foresight to create a text so complex that it would defy the world's best codebreakers 500 years into the future? While the pure hoax theory has fallen out of favor, its legacy is crucial. It forces a necessary discipline upon us. It reminds us to approach this beautiful book not with romantic assumption, but with critical thinking. We must separate what we want the manuscript to be from what the evidence suggests it could be. This healthy skepticism clears the air for a more nuanced possibility, one that lies in the vast space between a priceless secret and a worthless fake. Perhaps the manuscript's purpose was not to deceive, but to transform, serving a function we have not yet begun to imagine. Every leaf and stem in the herbal section seems to whisper a different secret. One illustration shows a vibrant plant with a tall stalk and a large, round flower head, its face turned as if following an unseen light. To many, this immediately suggests a sunflower. It is a compelling idea, but it creates a historical rupture. Sunflowers are native to the Americas, and they were not introduced to Europe until after Columbus's voyages in the late 15th century. If this is truly a sunflower, the carbon dating of the manuscript becomes a paradox, placing the book in Europe decades before the plant could possibly have arrived. This single image encapsulates the entire debate. Are we looking at a startling case of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact, a lucky guess by an artist imagining a new kind of flower, or is the similarity to a sunflower merely a coincidence, and we are misreading a symbolic representation of something else entirely? Botanists who have spent years comparing these drawings to known species often express a profound sense of dislocation. They might recognize the leaf of a lavender plant or the root structure of a gentian, but then the plant will blossom with a flower that has no botanical counterpart, or its leaves will be arranged in a mathematically impossible spiral. This has led to the composite theory, the idea that these are not portraits of real plants but coded diagrams. Each part of the plant, from its roots to its flower, could represent a different ingredient or a step in an alchemical process. The root might symbolize the base matter, the stem the path of transformation, and the flower the final, perfected philosopher's stone. In this interpretation, the bathing nymphs from other sections might be personifications of chemical substances, and the entire herbal section could be a visual recipe book for arcane experiments. To understand this, we can look at known herbals from the same period, like the works of Dioscorides. Those manuscripts depict plants with a clear, practical purpose. A drawing of chamomile is meant to be chamomile, used for its medicinal properties. The Voynich plants refuse this kind of direct identification. They exist in a space between literal representation and pure allegory. Some researchers propose they are astrological in nature, with each plant corresponding to a specific celestial influence or zodiac sign. Its form designed to capture the essence of that cosmic power rather than its physical appearance. This layering of potential meanings, botanical, alchemical, and astrological, is what makes the manuscript so endlessly fascinating and so stubbornly resistant to a single explanation. The very way we look at these images might be the problem. We are searching for a one-to-one correspondence with our world, when the artist may have been operating under a completely different set of rules, where the line between a real plant and its symbolic power was beautifully and intentionally blurred. The heavens drawn in the Voynich Manuscript are a map to a sky we have never seen. Its circular diagrams are populated with stars, but the constellations are subtly wrong, and the familiar zodiac signs are inhabited by slender, naked figures, mostly female, standing in concentric rings. These are not the gods and heroes of classical mythology. They are nymphs, arranged as if holding up the very fabric of the cosmos, a concept with no parallel in any known European astronomical text. Astronomers who have attempted to match these charts to historical star maps or specific celestial events, like the appearance of a comet, consistently hit a wall. The positions are too inaccurate to serve as a practical guide for navigation or prediction. The moons that dot these pages often have faces, their expressions changing across different phases, blending celestial mechanics with a kind of animistic spirit. This points away from a purely scientific intent and toward something symbolic, a fusion of observation and belief. The most famous of these celestial puzzles is the 9 rosettes fold-out, a sprawling, multi-page diagram that resembles a schematic for a cosmic engine. 9 elaborate structures, looking like fortified islands or celestial castles, are connected by a network of pipes, roads, and towers. Some researchers see this as a cosmological model, a map of the medieval universe itself. Each rosette could represent a different celestial sphere, from the moon to the fixed stars, with the connecting pathways illustrating the flow of influences between them, a concept straight from Hermetic and alchemical traditions. Others interpret it as a spiritual map, showing the soul's journey through different levels of existence. Why would an author go to such lengths to create an inaccurate sky? The answer may lie in the cultural context of the early 15th century, a time when the lines between astronomy and astrology, between science and magic, were beautifully blurred. A chart did not need to be factually precise to be functionally powerful. It could be a tool for understanding one's place in the cosmos, for calculating auspicious dates, or for meditating on the hidden connections between the macrocosm of the universe and the microcosm of the human body. The nymphs in the zodiac circles might not be depicting constellations, but rather the spiritual forces associated with them. The entire astronomical section feels less like a textbook and more like a user's manual for a philosophical system where the stars are alive with meaning. These celestial pages challenge our modern separation of the rational and the mystical. They suggest that the manuscript's author was not trying to record the sky as it was, but as it felt, a living, breathing entity intertwined with human destiny. This profound blend of science and spirit may be the most important clue of all, guiding us away from a search for literal truth and toward the hidden cultural roots that gave this mysterious book its voice. These bathing figures exist in a world of plumbing and pools. They are small, almost always female, and they are shown immersed in green or blue liquid, connected to each other by a complex network of tubes and vessels. The feeling is not one of a medical textbook, but of a living, flowing system. This is the biological section, and it stands in stark contrast to any known anatomical drawings from the medieval period. Where European manuscripts might show a Mussulman flayed to reveal his sinews, or a pregnant woman with a schematic uterus, the Voynich offers no such literal imagery. There are no hearts, no livers, no bones. Instead, the human body is represented as a landscape of interconnected channels, and the figures within it seem less like patients and more like spirits or essences. Historians of medicine point out this profound anachronism. The artist possessed the skill to draw realistic human forms, yet chose not to depict the internal organs we know they understood. This was a conscious decision, a rejection of the literal in favor of the symbolic. So what are these nymphs doing? One compelling theory points to the medieval practice of balneotherapy, the use of baths for healing. The figures appear to be bathing, and the green liquid could represent medicinal or mineral waters. Yet, the intricate piping suggests something more complex than a simple spa. The tubes are too deliberate, too systematic. They look like a diagram for a machine. This leads to another interpretation, deeply rooted in the alchemical traditions of the time. In alchemy, the purification of matter was often symbolized by bathing and drowning. These nymphs could represent different stages of a chemical process, their immersion in the pools a metaphor for dissolution and transformation. The entire system might be a visual recipe for creating the philosopher's stone, with the female figures symbolizing the volatile spirit of Mercury and the tubes representing the circulatory paths of transformation. Look at a specific folio, often called the birth diagram. Here, a nymph lies at the end of a tube, as if being delivered from it, while others stand in connected pools. This could be an alchemical allegory for the birth of a new, purified substance. The recurring motif of crowns on some figures supports this, as the crown was a common alchemical symbol for the perfected final product. The parallels with other esoteric systems are striking. The concept of energy channels in the body is central to many Eastern traditions, like the nadis in yoga or the meridians in acupuncture. While a direct link is unlikely, the Voynich manuscript might be expressing a similar universal idea, a belief in a vital force that flows through pathways connecting the human body to the cosmos itself. This biological enigma is not an isolated part of the book. It is the crucial link that ties the earthly plants to the celestial stars. The same nymphs that bathe in these green pools also inhabit the zodiac circles. The tubes that connect the bodies mirror the pipes that connect the rosettes in the fold-out map. This is the grand, unifying vision of the Voynich manuscript. It presents a universe where the human body, the plant kingdom, and the cosmic spheres are all reflections of a single, flowing, interconnected system. To understand the plants, you must understand the stars. To understand the stars, you must understand the body. This holistic philosophy points toward a specific kind of author, one who saw the world not as a collection of separate things, but as a single, living entity. The search for this mind leads us away from the pages of the book and into the heart of Renaissance Europe. The hunt for the author is a search for a ghost in the historical record. Who possessed the unique blend of knowledge, artistic skill, and motive to create such a confounding object? The prime suspect for decades was Roger Bacon, the 13th century Franciscan friar and visionary. His known passion for experimental science and encrypted writing made him a perfect fit. Wilfrid Voynich himself championed this theory, desperately wanting his discovery to be the lost work of a legendary mind. The timeline, however, presents an insurmountable problem. Bacon died around the year 1292, over a century before the carbon-dated vellum was even made. While his ideas could have influenced a later author, the manuscript cannot be from his own hand. This hard evidence forced researchers to look elsewhere, to figures who lived and worked within the manuscript's confirmed century. Another compelling candidate is the Elizabethan mystic John Dee, a renowned mathematician, astrologer, and collector of ancient manuscripts. Dee's interests align perfectly with the Voynichese content. We know he owned a vast library and traveled extensively through Europe, and he even claimed to have possessed a book by Roger Bacon written in a secret script. Could the Voynich be that very book? The problem is, no inventory of Dee's library definitively lists it, and his known ciphers bear little resemblance to Voynichese. Dee's scribe, the notorious Edward Kelly, is another frequent suspect. Kelly was a known forger of antiquities and claimed to communicate with angels through a language called Enochian. Some have tried to link this angelic tongue to the Voynich script, but the similarities are superficial at best. More importantly, both Dee and Kelly operated in the late 16th century, again placing them well after the book's creation. The evidence simply does not stick. Perhaps the author was not a famous name at all, but a forgotten genius working in the shadows of a northern Italian court. The manuscript's artistic style shows strong influences from the Veneto or Lombardy regions. A researcher named Stephen Skinner points to the possibility of a Jewish author, perhaps a physician fleeing persecution, who created a synthetic language to record knowledge safe from prying eyes. This would explain the isolation of the script and the blend of European and seemingly alien elements. The variations in handwriting, identified as Courier A and Courier B, strongly suggest multiple scribes were involved. This was not a solitary project. It points to a workshop, a school of thought, or a small community dedicated to a specific philosophical system. This collaborative nature makes the search for a single author perhaps futile. We are not looking for one ghost but several. The true creator of the Voynich manuscript may have been a collective, a group of Renaissance humanists, alchemists, or heretics who built their own private universe of knowledge, encoding it in a language meant only for themselves. The intellectual air of 15th century Europe crackled with a dangerous and thrilling energy. Ancient Greek and Roman texts, long lost to the West, were flooding in from the Arab world, bringing with them radical ideas about mathematics, astronomy, and the power of human reason. This was the Renaissance, the rebirth, but it was not the clean, scientific awakening we often imagine. It was a world where the lines between rigorous observation and mystical belief were not just blurred, they were non-existent. A single individual could be a physician, an astrologer, and an alchemist all at once, seeing no contradiction in these pursuits. This is the cultural crucible that forged the Voynich manuscript. To understand its bizarre pages, you must step into a mindset where every plant held a celestial signature, and the human body was a miniature reflection of the entire cosmos. Historian Frances Yates described this era as one of Hermeticism, a philosophy that saw the universe as a vast web of hidden connections, all waiting to be decoded by the enlightened mind. In this world, knowledge was not meant for everyone. It was power, and power had to be protected. Esoteric traditions like alchemy and the Jewish Kabbalah developed intricate symbolic languages precisely to conceal their secrets from the established church and from the uninitiated. An alchemical text would not show you a literal recipe for turning lead into gold. It would show you a king and queen marrying in a bath, a dragon eating its own tail, or a green lion devouring the sun. These were not mere pictures. They were a coded language where every image was a precise term in a philosophical and technical process. The Voynich Manuscript fits perfectly into this tradition. Its unreadable script and impossible plants are not necessarily a hoax. They could be the required obscurity of a genuine esoteric work. Consider the Ripley Scrolls, a contemporary alchemical manuscript. They are long, illustrated scrolls filled with cryptic poetry and vivid imagery of dragons, toads, and kings in fountains, all describing the steps to create the philosopher's stone. The text is in English, but it is so allegorical that it is nearly as impenetrable as the Voynich. The difference is that we have other texts that help us decipher the Ripley Scrolls' symbolism. For the Voynich, we have no key. The widespread Renaissance interest in herbalism and astrology, both prominent in the manuscript, further cement its place in this milieu. Every noble household had its book of herbs, but these were not simple gardening guides. Plants were believed to be governed by planets. A flower with a golden hue might be under the influence of the sun, and thus used in remedies for ailments of the heart, which was also considered a solar organ. The Voynich Botanical section, with its otherworldly plants, could be a catalogue of these astral botanicals, their forms representing their cosmic affinities rather than their physical reality. The bathing nymphs in the biological section echo the alchemical motif of purification through water, and the interconnected tubes mirror the hidden channels through which spiritual or alchemical energies were thought to flow. The manuscript was not an anomaly. It was a product of its time, likely created by someone steeped in these overlapping traditions of science and magic for a small audience of fellow adepts. Its pages were not meant to be read by a university scholar, but to be meditated upon by someone who already understood the symbolic language. This realization is a monumental shift. It means we have been searching for a linguistic key to a text that might require a symbolic one. It tells us that the answer to the Voynich mystery may not lie in a dictionary, but in the recovery of a lost way of seeing the world itself. A silent revolution is unfolding inside supercomputers, where algorithms are now reading the Voynich manuscript with a patience no human could ever possess. Artificial intelligence and machine learning have entered the fray, not with assumptions about its origin, but with a pure, unbiased analysis of its patterns. These systems treat the text as a vast dataset, breaking it down into tokens, the smallest units of meaning, which could be single characters or entire words. They then map the intricate relationships between these tokens, searching for the hidden grammar and syntax that have eluded us for centuries. This is pattern recognition on a colossal scale, capable of spotting subtle correlations across hundreds of pages that a person would simply never see. It is our most powerful lens yet, focusing on the microscopic structure of the text itself. One of the most publicized breakthroughs came in 2018 from a team at the University of Alberta. Their AI was trained to analyze the text's linguistic properties and then compare them to the core structures of hundreds of known languages. The algorithm's surprising suggestion was that the underlying language might be Hebrew. More specifically, they proposed a system called alphagram substitution, where the letters of each word are reordered into a predefined sequence, like alphabetical order, effectively scrambling the word beyond recognition. The model even offered some tentative translations, producing phrases like "she made recommendations to the priest," a sentence that feels strangely plausible for a medieval manuscript. For a moment, it seemed like the 500-year-old wall had finally cracked, but the scientific community met this claim with cautious skepticism. The primary danger in all computational analysis is overfitting. This is when an algorithm is so finely tuned to the specific data it was trained on that it finds patterns that are not really there, effectively seeing faces in the statistical noise. Without an independent way to verify the translation, the Hebrew hypothesis remains just that, a compelling but unproven model. Computer scientists involved in these projects often describe the Voynich as a uniquely difficult problem. The data set is small, there is no external key for the machine to learn from, and the text's own peculiar repetitiveness can easily mislead a powerful algorithm. It is like teaching a student a subject when you yourself do not know the answers, hoping their intuition will uncover a truth you cannot see. To understand the potential, we can look at other historical texts where AI has succeeded. These computational methods were instrumental in deciphering parts of the famous Linear B script from ancient Greece and in restoring damaged Roman scrolls from Herculaneum, carbonized by the eruption of Vesuvius. In those cases, however, researchers had a larger body of text or a known cultural context to guide the machines. The Voynich offers no such advantage. It is an island of data, and every algorithm that visits its shores risks projecting its own expectations onto the landscape. Yet, these modern techniques represent the undeniable cutting edge. They have moved us from guessing to modeling, from intuition to calculation. They may not have provided the final answer, but they have given us a new and powerful way to ask the question. This digital forensics inspires a profound hope, pushing us to wonder what future technologies, perhaps quantum computing or AI we cannot yet conceive, might finally hear the whisper hidden within the code. This hope inevitably leads us to the most recent and controversial claims of a full decipherment. Headlines promising the Voynich Manuscript's final decoding flash across our screens with tantalizing regularity. Each new claim arrives like a thunderclap, suggesting the 500-year-old mystery has been solved at last. Yet these announcements are often followed by a quieter, more complex reality of academic debate and methodological critique. One of the most publicized recent attempts came from a researcher named Nicholas Gibbs in 2017. He proposed that the manuscript was not a singular text, but a standard, recycled guide to women's health, specifically focusing on herbal remedies and therapeutic baths. Gibbs argued that the seemingly unique script was merely a form of Latin abbreviation, a medieval shorthand where common phrases were represented by a single, special character. He pointed to the bathing nymphs as illustrations of gynecological treatments and believed he had matched some plant illustrations to known species in other herbals. For a moment, the theory seemed elegantly simple, reducing the cosmic mystery to a practical medical manual, but the scholarly response was swift and devastating. Experts in medieval Latin and manuscript studies dismantled the claim piece by piece. They demonstrated that the abbreviations Gibbs identified did not conform to any known Latin shorthand system of the period. Furthermore, his translations were not reproducible. He was accused of cherry-picking characters from different parts of the manuscript and assembling them into phrases that supported his thesis, while ignoring vast sections of text that did not fit. One paleographer noted that if his method were applied consistently, it would produce grammatical nonsense. the theory collapsed under the weight of its own inconsistencies, serving as a stark lesson in the dangers of forcing a preconceived narrative onto the text. Just 2 years later, another storm of publicity arrived with a study claiming the manuscript was written in a Proto-Romance language. This theory suggested the script was a previously unknown, phonetically written vernacular, a precursor to languages like Italian and Spanish, using a custom alphabet. The researchers proposed a detailed key, transliterating the alien characters into sounds, and offered sample translations that described the plants and rituals in a surprisingly mundane way. The media eagerly broadcast the news that the world's most mysterious book might finally be readable. Yet once again, the academic community raised profound objections. Linguists pointed out that the proposed phonetic values were highly speculative, and that the resulting translations often relied on creative interpretations of the text, bending words to fit the images they were near. The most damning criticism was the lack of a verifiable methodology. Other scholars could not apply the same rules and achieve the same results, the fundamental requirement for any legitimate decipherment. A prominent skeptic compared it to seeing shapes in clouds, where the desire to find meaning overpowers objective analysis. These cycles of hype and critique reveal a deeper challenge in the digital age. A dramatic headline travels faster and farther than a cautious, nuanced rebuttal. The public's genuine fascination with the manuscript creates a vacuum that sensational claims rush to fill, often leaving the more tedious, rigorous work of peer-reviewed scholarship in the shadows. This dynamic can erode trust in academic institutions and fuel conspiracy theories, suggesting that experts are hiding the truth or are simply incompetent. Yet this very process of public trial by fire is also a vital part of the scientific method. Each high-profile failure forces researchers to refine their approaches, to demand higher standards of evidence, and to acknowledge the profound complexity of the puzzle. It teaches us that a single, elegant solution is unlikely. The Voynich Manuscript resists simple answers because it is not a simple lock with a single key. It is a cultural artifact, a product of a worldview that may be fundamentally alien to our own. The repeated failure of these literal translations quietly guides us toward a more profound possibility. Perhaps we have been asking the wrong question all along. We have been searching for what the words say, when the real secret may be why the book was made in the first place. The Voynich Manuscript is more than just cryptic text and strange images. It is a physical object you could hold in your hands. Its 235 vellum pages whisper secrets not only through their script but through their very substance. Vellum is made from animal skin, a costly and time-consuming material, and the quality of the parchment used here is consistently high. This was not a cheap notebook. It represented a significant investment in materials alone, suggesting a patron with deep pockets or a creator with substantial means. Analysis of the ink reveals it is iron gall ink, the standard writing fluid across medieval Europe, created from tannic acids and iron salts. This simple fact is profoundly important. It grounds the manuscript firmly in the technological context of its time, pushing back against theories of otherworldly origins. The act of creation left its own marks, conservators using multispectral imaging, a technique that captures light beyond the visible spectrum, have peered beneath the surface of the ink. They discovered faint underdrawings, the skeletal sketches that guided the final illustrations. This reveals a meticulous, multi-stage process. The author or artists first laid down the drawings in a light sketch, then carefully inked the text and painted the vibrant colors. This is the method of a professional workshop, not a hasty forger. The binding, though not original, and the organization of the folios show further signs of deliberate planning. Small, faint marks known as quire numbers are visible on some pages, used by the bookbinder to assemble the sections in the correct order. The script itself, despite its alien nature, is remarkably consistent in its size and spacing, written with a confident, practiced hand. What does this meticulous craftsmanship tell us about the author's intent? A lavish, commissioned project for a wealthy noble would likely display even more gold leaf and extravagant decoration. The Voynich, for all its mystery, is not opulent in that way. Its value lies in its content. This points toward a different possibility, that it was a deeply personal or communal project. A reference work for a closed circle of initiates who understood its value lay not in gold, but in the knowledge it purported to hold. The physical book, therefore, becomes our most reliable witness. It tells a story of careful, deliberate creation by someone with access to resources and skill, a person or group who believed that what they were recording was worth this considerable and painstaking effort. This beautiful, baffling book was created for a reason, but what was its ultimate purpose? We can see the ink and the vellum, but the intention behind them remains the greatest puzzle of all. One of the strongest theories is that the Voynich Manuscript is a scientific treatise, a product of the new natural philosophy taking root in the Renaissance. Its pages are filled with detailed observations of the natural world, from the structure of plants to the movements of the stars. In an age when science and magic were intertwined, this book could represent a serious attempt to catalog a unique understanding of the cosmos. It might be the private notebook of a brilliant, unorthodox thinker, recording observations and theories too radical for the public eye. The intricate plumbing in the biological section could depict a theory of internal bodily fluids, while the celestial charts might represent an alternative model of the heavens. Yet, this scientific purpose is deeply symbolic, not literal. The plants are not real, so the science must be of a different kind, perhaps exploring the hidden spiritual signatures within nature rather than its physical forms. A more practical theory suggests the manuscript is a medical guide, specifically a book of encoded herbal remedies. Throughout history, physicians and apothecaries guarded their recipes fiercely. Encoding them in a secret script would protect a valuable trade. Look at the bathing nymphs not as mystical symbols, but as patients undergoing hydrotherapy, a common medieval treatment. The interconnected tubes could represent a diagram for administering these cures. Many known herbals from the period, like the Tractatus de Herbis, show detailed plants alongside instructions for their use. The Voynich follows this basic format but replaces the readable text with its unbreakable code. This theory gains strength from the book's clear sections, which mirror the organization of a medical compendium, moving from general botany to specific therapeutic applications. But the theory stumbles on the same old problem. If it is a medical text, why are the plants fictional? Why go to the trouble of inventing an entire botany instead of drawing the real herbs any apothecary would use? This suggests that if it is a medical text, it is one of a profoundly different tradition, where the essence of a cure matters more than its physical ingredient. This leads us to the most compelling and complex possibility, that the Voynich is an esoteric text, a grimoire or alchemical manual for spiritual initiation. In this view, the book was never meant to be read literally. It is a meditative object, a map of the soul's journey. The strange plants are not from our earth but from a spiritual realm, each one representing a different state of consciousness or a step toward enlightenment. The bathing nymphs are not women but personifications of alchemical substances, their immersion symbolizing the process of dissolution and purification necessary to create the philosopher's stone. The entire manuscript can be seen as one long, visual alchemical recipe, where the text acts as a mantra or a series of incantations to be contemplated during the work. Scholar Leo Levitov proposed a radical version of this idea, arguing that the manuscript was a religious document from the Cathar sect, a Christian heretical group persecuted into extinction. He believed the script was a written form of a spoken language used by the Cathars to record their rituals and beliefs in secret. While most scholars find his specific linguistic claims unconvincing, the underlying idea is powerful. The manuscript could be the sole surviving artifact of a lost spiritual tradition, its symbols meaningful only to a small group of initiates who are long gone. Comparing the Voynich to known works from its time reveals both striking parallels and profound differences. It shares the format of an herbal, but its plants are unreal. It has the circular diagrams of an astronomical text, but its stars are inaccurate. It contains the symbolic imagery of an alchemical scroll, but its system is entirely its own. This unique combination is the core of the mystery. It borrows the clothing of practical books, but uses it to dress a philosophical or spiritual body. Decoding the Voynich, therefore, requires more than a linguistic key. It demands that we understand the author's intent. Was the goal to inform, to heal, or to transform? This question of purpose has allowed the manuscript to escape the world of academia and sink deep into modern culture. It has become a blank canvas for our own imaginations, a story that is never finished, inviting every generation to project its own hopes, fears, and mysteries onto its silent vellum pages. The Voynich manuscript has long escaped the dusty shelves of academia to become a star in its own right. You can find its influence woven through the plots of best-selling novels, where it often holds the key to an ancient conspiracy or a world-altering secret. In James Michener's epic novel, The Source, the manuscript appears as a profound religious text, its mystery underscoring the book's exploration of faith and history through the ages. This fictional treatment transforms the book from a puzzle into a powerful narrative device, a symbol of ultimate truth just out of reach. Video game designers have been equally captivated. In the blockbuster franchise Assassin's Creed, which blends historical fact with science fiction, the manuscript is presented as a cryptic artifact left by a precursor civilization, containing advanced knowledge that can change the world. These portrayals share a common thread. They amplify the manuscript's aura, framing it not just as an unreadable book, but as a container for forbidden or lost power. The creators behind these works often speak of its unique appeal, describing it as the perfect blank slate, a genuine historical mystery that invites the imagination to run wild. One game designer noted that its very existence proves that some stories from history are stranger than any fiction they could invent. This cultural resonance extends to documentaries and television specials, which present the manuscript with dramatic music and tantalizing questions, hooking viewers with the promise of a revelation that never quite comes. Online, the Voynich thrives in a different ecosystem. Internet forums and social media platforms buzz with theories that academic journals would never entertain. Here, the manuscript is frequently claimed to hold extraterrestrial knowledge, a botanical guide to alien flora, or a prophetic calendar predicting future events. These conspiracies are compelling because they offer a grand, unifying answer to a problem that has stumped experts for centuries. They simplify the frustrating ambiguity into a thrilling narrative of hidden truths and suppressed history. Why does this particular object inspire such fervent speculation where others do not? The answer lies in its unique combination of authenticity and complete obscurity. The carbon dating proves it is genuinely old, a real artifact from a distant time, yet its contents are utterly closed to us. This duality creates a vacuum, and nature, along with human imagination, abhors a vacuum. We rush to fill the silence with our own stories, our own fears, and our own hopes. The manuscript becomes a mirror, reflecting not the secrets of the 15th century, but the mysteries we wish to solve in our own time. It transcends its origins as a simple codex to become a modern symbol of the unknown itself, a reminder that even in our age of information, some pages remain stubbornly, beautifully unturned. The locked room of the Voynich Manuscript has an open door, and millions have walked through it. Across the internet, a global army of amateur sleuths has taken up the challenge, turning a scholarly enigma into a collaborative, crowd-sourced puzzle. This is the new frontier of decryption, where anyone with a curious mind and an internet connection can join the hunt. Online forums like the Voynich Manuscript Interest Group have become digital workshops, buzzing with activity day and night. Here, a retired engineer from Texas might post a new statistical analysis of word frequencies, while a school teacher in Poland shares her theory linking a specific plant illustration to a known medieval allegory. These platforms are vast, open laboratories where ideas are proposed, tested, and refined in real time, a stark contrast to the slow, private pace of traditional academia. This community has produced some of the most creative, if controversial, approaches to the text. One enthusiast meticulously charted every character and proposed it was a form of abbreviated Ukrainian. Another used a complex algorithm to suggest the text was a phonetic transcription of a Near Eastern language. While these specific solutions have not gained widespread acceptance, the patterns they uncover and the data they generate often provide valuable new avenues for professional researchers to explore. This interaction between amateur and academic is a delicate dance. Many scholars initially viewed these online efforts with deep skepticism, dismissing them as the work of over-eager conspiracy theorists. Yet, as the digital age progressed, a growing number of experts have come to appreciate the sheer volume of work and the diversity of thought that the crowd can provide. A university linguist might lack the programming skills to run a certain type of pattern recognition software, but an amateur coder in the community can build that tool in a week. This synergy is not unique to the Voynich. We have seen it in other fields, like the citizen science project Galaxy Zoo, where millions of volunteers helped classify distant galaxies, leading to genuine astronomical discoveries. The decipherment of ancient languages often benefits from this kind of distributed brainpower. As one historian noted, the value is not always in the final answer, but in the thousands of wrong turns that help us map the boundaries of the possible. This democratic engagement, however, is not without its friction. Conflicts arise when a passionate amateur becomes convinced they have found the one true solution, clashing with the cautious, evidence-based world of peer review. The internet can amplify these disputes, turning scholarly debate into public spectacle. Yet, even this tension is productive. It forces everyone to sharpen their arguments and defend their methods under the bright, unforgiving light of global scrutiny. This collective endeavor proves that the key to the Voynich manuscript may not be held in a single ivory tower, but could be scattered in fragments across the minds of people everywhere. It transforms the book from a passive object of study into a living, breathing conversation that spans the globe. This very openness, however, forces us to confront a difficult question. What responsibilities do we have to this unique cultural treasure, and what happens if, or when, its final secret is revealed? The vellum pages of the Voynich manuscript are now protected within the climate-controlled vault of the Botanical Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University. Here, the book exists in a state of profound tension, caught between two competing duties. The library is tasked with preserving this unique object for future generations, while also making it accessible for the global community desperate to study it. Every time the manuscript is physically handled, its 500-year-old pages risk damage from light, humidity, and the oils on human hands. Yet, to keep it locked away entirely feels like a betrayal of its purpose as a vessel of knowledge. This is the core ethical dilemma for its guardians. How do you balance the safety of a fragile artifact against the world's right to try to understand it? The head of preservation at the Voynich might describe the manuscript as a patient in permanent, delicate care, where the primary goal is to minimize any stress that could accelerate its decay. This philosophy means that direct physical access is granted only to a handful of qualified researchers with a compelling, scholarly need. For most of us, our window to the Voynich is digital. High-resolution scans have been made freely available online, a democratic act that allows anyone from a high school student in Tokyo to a retired engineer in Buenos Aires to pore over every mysterious character. This digital liberation has fueled the modern wave of crowdsourced decipherment, but it also introduces new ethical questions. Can a digital image ever truly capture the subtle texture of the vellum, the slight variations in ink density, or the faint traces of a guiding sketch beneath the paint? Some scholars worry that this disconnect can lead to misinterpretation, with amateurs analyzing a flattened, perfect image without understanding the physical context of the book as a whole. The debate grows even more intense when we consider invasive testing. Is it justifiable to take a microscopic sample of the ink or a tiny sliver of parchment to perform advanced chemical analysis? Such tests could potentially reveal the geographic origin of the materials or identify the specific ink recipe, providing crucial clues, but the process is destructive. It would mean permanently removing a piece of the manuscript, no matter how small. Many conservators and ethicists argue that this is a line we should not cross. They believe that non-destructive technologies will continue to improve, and that we must not sacrifice the physical integrity of the object for a potential and not guaranteed piece of information. They see the manuscript as an unbroken whole where the binding, the vellum, and even the stains are all part of its story. This conflict came to a head during a past restoration effort when a previous owner rebound the pages, a well-intentioned act that unfortunately erased potentially valuable evidence about the book's original structure and history. This incident serves as a permanent cautionary tale about the irreversible consequences of even the most careful intervention. These ethical challenges are pushing institutions toward a new model of stewardship, one that emphasizes inclusivity and transparency. There is a growing recognition that the solution may not come from a single expert in a locked room, but from a global conversation that includes not only linguists and historians, but also data scientists, botanists, and even artists. By making the data available and encouraging collaborative, cross-disciplinary research, the guardians of the Voynich are fostering a more holistic approach. They are slowly shifting the question from who owns the manuscript to who gets to contribute to its story. This reflection transforms the Voynich from a mere intellectual puzzle into a profound responsibility. It is a piece of our shared human heritage, a silent witness to a forgotten way of thinking. The choices we make about how to care for it today will determine whether its voice, however faint, can still be heard by the generations who follow us. And so the focus turns from protecting the past to enabling the future, to the next generation of tools and minds that may finally bridge the centuries of silence. The future of the Voynich manuscript may not be written in its text, but in the light we shine upon it. Hyperspectral imaging, a technology that sees far beyond the range of human vision, could be the next great leap. This method involves capturing hundreds of images at different light wavelengths, revealing what our eyes cannot see. It might detect faded annotations in the margins, traces of a guiding grid beneath the paint, or even the ghost of a previous text scraped from the vellum and written over. Such a discovery would be monumental, providing the context or the crib that codebreakers have desperately needed for a century. Imagine finding a single Latin word, a date, or a name hidden in the periphery, a single thread to begin unraveling the entire tapestry. Beyond imaging, the raw computational power of quantum computing offers a tantalizing, though distant, possibility. Where classical computers analyze patterns sequentially, a quantum machine could model millions of linguistic and cipher models simultaneously, testing them against the manuscript's unique structure in a fraction of the time. It would not guess at the meaning, but rather map the entire solution space, identifying the most probable systems that could have generated such a text. This would not be a translation, but a verification, proving definitively whether the text holds semantic meaning or is an elaborate null set. The key will be collaboration. We are moving toward international digital consortia, where high-resolution scans are paired with vast databases of linguistic corpora and historical records. An algorithm could cross-reference the statistical fingerprints of Voynichese against every documented language, dialect, and cipher system, searching for a match that human scholars might never spot. This is not a solitary pursuit anymore. It is a global, interdisciplinary project that connects medieval historians with machine learning experts and botanists with data scientists. We have seen this model succeed elsewhere. Advanced imaging techniques recently allowed scholars to read carbonized scrolls from Herculaneum, and LiDAR scanning has revealed entire lost cities beneath jungle canopies. These triumphs remind us that our tools are constantly evolving, turning the impossible into the merely difficult. Yet, for all this technological promise, a profound humility is necessary. Many experts caution that the manuscript might be fundamentally unreadable, not because the code is too complex, but because the context is lost. If it is a purely personal notation system or an artistic invocation of language, no amount of computing power can restore its original intent. It would be like trying to understand a private joke told 500 years ago, where all the participants are long gone. The manuscript may forever remain a beautiful artifact of a lost way of thinking, a permanent monument to the human mind's capacity for mystery. This uncertainty is part of its enduring power. It pushes us to develop better tools, to ask smarter questions, and to remember that some secrets are not meant to be broken, but to be cherished. The true legacy of the Voynich Manuscript may not be the message it contains, but the endless conversation it inspires across the centuries. The Voynich Manuscript is not alone in its silence. History has gifted us other books that refuse to speak, creating a small, stubborn library of the undeciphered. Consider the Rohank Codex discovered in Hungary. Its pages are filled with a dense, unknown script and illustrations of battles and religious scenes that seem to blend Christianity, Islam, and paganism into a confusing whole. Unlike the Voynich, its alphabet is entirely different, and its drawings suggest a narrative, a story frozen in time that we cannot read. Then there is the Liber Linteus, a manuscript written on linen. It is the longest surviving text in the Etruscan language, a tongue that faded from history without a Rosetta Stone to unlock it. We can sound out the words, but their meaning is a ghost, a complete language that remains just beyond our grasp. And from ancient Crete, we have the Phaistos disc, a circle of fired clay stamped with mysterious symbols spiraling inward. It is a single, beautiful object, a message that feels complete in itself, yet its purpose, whether a hymn, a treaty, or a king's inventory, is utterly lost. What patterns connect these distant puzzles? Each one is an island of data, written in a script with no known relatives. Their origins are shrouded in controversy, and each has attracted generations of hopeful decoders who see solutions in everything from ancient Hungarian to a form of early Greek. A researcher who has studied several of these texts once noted a shared rhythm of hope and frustration. They said, "You begin each project with the conviction that you are the one who will finally hear the whisper, and you end by realizing the whisper is in a room whose door has been sealed for centuries." Yet the Voynich stands apart in crucial ways. Its sheer volume of text and the coherence of its artistic vision are unmatched. The Voynich Codex has been studied intensely, but for a shorter time, and the Phaistos disc is a solitary artifact. The Voynich has endured 500 years of the most advanced analysis the world could muster, from Renaissance cryptographers to quantum computing algorithms, and it has resisted them all. Its botanical and biological illustrations create a self-contained universe that feels both systematic and alien, a quality not found in its enigmatic cousins. This comparative view does more than just list mysteries. It reveals something fundamental about our own nature. We are pattern seekers, and the existence of an unreadable book is an irresistible challenge. It represents a hole in our understanding of the past, a void we feel compelled to fill with our intellect and our imagination. These manuscripts are not merely historical artifacts. They are mirrors reflecting our endless drive to know, to solve, and to connect. They prove that the human mind, in its quest for meaning, will always be drawn to the beautiful, silent spaces where history has chosen to keep its secrets. Our minds are hardwired to rebel against silence. This deep-seated need to solve puzzles is what transforms the Voynich Manuscript from a forgotten book into a living challenge. Psychologists call this the mystery effect, a cognitive bias where our brains assign greater value and interest to questions that remain unanswered. An unresolved puzzle creates a kind of mental itch, a gap in our understanding that we feel compelled to close. This is not just an intellectual exercise, it is an emotional one. The thrill of the chase, the rush of a potential breakthrough, provides a powerful reward, fueling our curiosity and perseverance long after logic might suggest giving up. This engagement is a form of play for the mind, stimulating neural pathways and fostering creativity in ways that settled facts never can. We are not just seeking an answer, we are reveling in the process of the search itself. This explains why mysteries like the Bermuda Triangle or the ancient stones of Stonehenge persist in our collective imagination. Their power does not come from a proven solution, but from the endless possibilities they represent. They become blank canvases upon which we project our theories, our fears, and our hopes. The astronomer Carl Sagan perfectly captured this spirit when he reflected that the importance of a question is not merely in its answer, but in what the question makes us become. It makes us explorers, detectives, and inventors. The Voynich Manuscript, in its perfect silence, forces us to become all three. It ignites a collaborative fire, drawing in linguists, computer scientists, artists, and amateur sleuths from across the globe, all united by a shared desire to hear a story no one has heard for centuries. This collective endeavor proves that the value of a great mystery may not lie in the solution it withholds, but in the human ingenuity and connection it inspires along the way. The journey through the unknown, with all its frustrations and fleeting triumphs, is its own profound reward. The Voynich Manuscript remains a silent symphony of ink and vellum, a 500-year-old conversation where we have not yet learned the language. This journey has taken us from a dusty chest in an Italian villa to the cutting edge of artificial intelligence, through debates between hoax and cipher, between forgotten tongue and artificial code. We have walked through its forest of impossible plants, traced the paths of its celestial nymphs, and pondered the intricate plumbing of its biological diagrams. While a definitive answer still lies just beyond our grasp, the value of this pursuit is not measured solely by that final translation. Each failed theory, each statistical analysis, and every new technological probe peels back another layer, not of the manuscript, but of our own understanding. It forces us to question what language truly is, to appreciate the beautiful strangeness of the Renaissance mind, and to recognize the profound human need to find meaning in the unknown. This book is a permanent reminder that history is not a solved puzzle, but a living, breathing landscape filled with shadows and whispers. Let its enduring mystery inspire your own curiosity. What other wonders hidden in plain sight are waiting for the right mind, the right tool, or the right question? The quest to hear the Voynich speak continues, a testament to the simple, powerful truth that some stories are so compelling, their very silence is worth centuries of listening.